of a subpoena is not a legal tactic. It is a way to get the truth. I mean, I guess it is both. It is both a legal tactic that prosecutors and investigators deploy, but it's also almost a last-ditch effort if Mueller seeks permission to subpoena the president from, I guess, until yesterday it would have been Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. It would have been a last attempt to get the truth. It's abundantly clear, and we included John Dowd's comments as Bob Woodward reported them in his book Fear, because no one who represents the president in a legal capacity thinks he can tell the truth.
Well, right, and you know, this whole fight over, this whole negotiation has been a dance, right? And now they basically, if the subpoena is taken off the table, and that's still an if, but we're definitely getting signals that that may very well be taken off the table, I think frankly the music stops and there's no more dancing anymore, because you have no way to force their hand from the prosecutor's point of view. And it's everyone's trying to figure out like who makes the next move at that point.
Katie Benner, if you could weigh in what you and your colleagues have reported about being Rod Rosenstein, not just over the last 17 months, but today. Today, Rod Rosenstein, it's my understanding as of this morning, was still the DOJ official ostensibly in charge of the Mueller probe, but that could change any moment. Sarah Igor Flores put out a statement yesterday, right, saying that Matt Whitaker is now in charge of all investigations and all matters at the Justice Department.
Of course, I mean, very rarely do we ever even know who the Deputy Attorney General is. I would say that Rod Rosenstein has been in a unique position because he's been handling the highest profile and what some people would call arguably the most important case the Justice Department has handled in quite a long time. Now, by having Matt Whitaker oversee it, immediately Rod Rosenstein becomes far less significant. He becomes far less of a problem for the White House, but also has far less power. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not he even wants to stay on now that he no longer has control of this incredibly consequential case, or if he wants to retire, which, you know, he's talked about numerous times, especially in light of the reporting that the Times did, saying that he had that he had doubts about the president after Comey was fired, that he had threatened or spoken of possibly secretly taping conversations with the president. His future at the department has been very, very precarious anyway. And now that he is no longer in charge of this high-profile investigation, it might be a time for him to step down before he's pushed out.
Katie, you and your colleagues also, we've been talking about an investigation that most reasonable people would like to see continue, the Mueller probe. There are other investigations that the president and his allies are interested in seeing commenced, and you report this. Your paper reports Mr. Whitaker and Mr. Trump also share similar views on what they consider the need for a special counsel to investigate Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server. The FBI investigated, but closed the case without bringing charges in 2016. Mr. Sessions rebuffed calls for another special counsel. In 2014, Mr. Whitaker became the executive director of the Conservative Foundation for Accountability and Civic Trust, known as FACT. The organization called itself a watchdog group and mainly made accusations of ethical or legal violations against Democratic politicians, including Mrs. Clinton. Now, I recall Jeff Sessions and Rod Rosenstein being peppered, and that's a nice word, by House Republicans like Jim Jordan and Mark Meadows and others about appointing a second special counsel. They testified under oath that that was not necessary. Could Whitaker reopen that Pandora's box?
Sure, Whitaker most certainly could. And if he does, I think the next question then is, what happens to morale at the Justice Department? These cases, especially the Hillary Clinton case, has been adjudicated so many times, including with an Inspector General's report. I think to reopen the matter might have some serious consequences for how people feel inside of the building, how they feel about working on the case, and how they feel about working for Matt Whitaker. And of course, it makes the Justice Department a spectacle yet again, and a huge, and catnip for ultra partisans on both sides of the aisle who really want to fight about Hillary Clinton. I don't think it's a place that anybody at the Justice Department would want to be.
Jonathan Lemiere, it's just a remarkable turn that Donald Trump, who is under active investigation for obstruction of justice, fires one of the witnesses in the obstruction of justice case, and in his place installs someone who's interested, who shares his passion and zeal for investigating Hillary Clinton again.
That's right. And according to our reporting, this, as much as there are certainly overtones here, it's a tactical overtones of the Mueller probe, this also, the decision to fire Sessions was just sort of almost an instinctual move by the president, who's wanted to do this for months. More than anything, he just was tired of having the guy around. He was so upset by Sessions' decision to recuse himself. For him, that was the original sin that he could never forgive. That he was, as you know, for months wanted to do it and was talked out of it by some of his closest aides, both inside and outside the White House. Rudy Giuliani told me a few weeks ago that he had repeatedly had to tell him, they threw his body in front of that, like, don't do it, that's the worst thing you can do for this probe. And Trump, who's never likes to be told no, agreed begrudgingly to hold off for a little bit. But literally, the votes were still being counted in these midterms, and he agreed to hold off until then. And then he finally decided enough's enough. But now, of course, it has this repercussion effect, and I'm sure this course went into the thinking as to what now for the Mueller probe. And there are people around him who are alarmed by this decision to do it now while the investigation is still going. Chief of Staff John Kelly, we've reported, suggested that he wait until the Mueller probe was over before he acted on Sessions. But Trump decided not to. Consequences be damned.
Other people have given him that same advice. He didn't listen to them. He's now looking around, casting about, I understand, for a new Attorney General. And coincidentally, maybe not, Chris Christie was at the White House today.
Yes, he was. He was there for a different event. We know he huddled with Jared Kushner afterwards, too, about some prison reform stuff, considering the complicated history between those two men. Right. Anytime those two are in the room together, it's always an interesting moment, and we hope to get a readout later. But yes, Christie is one of the people he's considered. Someone I was talking to say that Giuliani's name has come up. There are certainly, there's not really a sense that Whitaker will be kept on full time, but what we've been told is that Trump may not rush into this decision, that he feels like, as we know, so regretful of how things turned out with Sessions, that he wants to perhaps spend a little more time figuring out who he wants, particularly because he seemed very happy with his interim Attorney General.
Matt Miller, you said on this program yesterday that Matt Whitaker would need to, or would likely be counseled to recuse himself from the Russia probe. Would Chris Christie have a similar set of circumstances that would lead you to make a similar assessment?
I think it would be even more black and white in Chris Christie's case. Matt Whitaker, I think it'll be a little bit of a gray area based on his public statements and based on the fact that he has this close association with Sam Clovis. Interestingly enough, I think Rod Rosenstein is one of the people that can influence that decision. He's the person that can tell the ethics officials whether Sam Clovis is an important part of this investigation. So Rod Rosenstein may still have a card yet to play. But with Chris Christie, it would be black and white. It would be under the same DOJ regulations that caused Sessions to have to recuse himself. The fact that he had a role on the campaign that is now under investigation, it would be just as clear that Chris Christie would have to recuse himself as well if he was nominated and eventually confirmed as Attorney General.
Harry Litman.